Al-Akhfash rahimahullah says, when Allah says fi khusr, he is in loss, what he means by that is he is in destruction. Halaka. Halak actually literally means violent death. There's maut, that's death. But halak is violent death, like a death in a car accident or a vicious kind of death. So he's setting himself up for this vicious end. وَقَالَ الْفَرَّاء عُقُوبَةً. And Farra says that this is a terrible ending. Uquba means a consequence, an ending that is scary for others to watch. In other words, one's end, that when other people see this, I don't want to end up like that. And you use his uquba as an example among yourselves. You say, you remember what happened to him? You don't want to go down that road, that kind of thing. So this is uquba. Then Ibn Zayd rahimahullah, he says, lafi shar. Lafi khusr here implies lafi shar, that he is immersed in evil. Because the ultimate loss of the human being is his engrossment in evil deeds. We read something from Ash-Shaqiqi rahimahullah. لفظ الإنسان وإن كان منفردا فإن ألفه جعلته للجنس. The word al-insan, even though it's singular, it has been used for all humanity, generally speaking. Then we come to a very, very important comment that is made by Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, and it's so powerful that's even quoted by Mufti Muhammad Shafi' in his Urdu tafsir, Ma'arif al-Quran. The translation of which is also available in English. It's not the best English, so if you can read the Urdu tafsir, Ma'arif al-Quran. But those of you who don't have access to that language, at least something of the English is available. What is this comment that is so beautiful that I'm referring to by Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah? He says that humanity is kept from accepting the truth of this deen by two obstacles. There are two obstacles that keep human beings from saving themselves. Now, what is the path to save yourself? There are two things. Those are, in the Quran we find الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا what's after what? عَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. This is what we find all over the Quran, right? They believe and they act. They believe and they act. Even though we haven't talked in detail what iman is Allah referring to, what righteous deed is Allah referring to. We're just using them as terms, as tags and phrases right now. But generally, this is the path to salvation. This is the path to save yourself and be successful in the akhirah. The first step, iman. The second step, action. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah argues there are two obstacles before the people that keep them from iman and action. What are those two obstacles? He calls them shubuhat and shahawat. Shubuhat and shahawat. What does that mean? Shubuhat means doubts. Shahawat means temptations, desires. So he says the two things that keep people from accepting the truth are doubts and temptations. What does he mean by that? You see, when you ask someone to accept this deen, you're asking them to give up a lot of things. You're asking them really to give up a lot of things. I had a friend in college, big guy, really loved football, and you used to talk about Islam all the time. And I'd say, man, why don't you just accept Islam? I can't give up that pork, man. I just can't give it up. That's some good stuff. What's his obstacle? He's not in doubt. His obstacle is not doubt. He's convinced this is good. His obstacle is his temptation. Another one says, I can't give up the life of partying. I can't give up the women. I can't give up the clubs. I can't give up the drugs. I can't give up this or that or the other. These are desires. On the one hand, there's a person who says, this is right, but I cannot live by this because the gravitational pull of temptation is just too strong for me. This is one problem. Here's another problem. Here's a person who doesn't accept, what this is because he's not sure if this is the truth. They'll say, how do you know yours is the only right religion? There are so many religions out there. What about them? What about all those people? They're going to just go to hell? That's what you believe? I can't accept that. I'm not sure how can there be just one right way? No, if there was just one right way, why wouldn't everybody just follow it? These kinds of questions come in this person's mind. And they fall into what? Doubt. This is the root of doubt. Either one of these things will keep you from the deen. Either one of these things. And by the way, most people, the problem is in doubt. Most people, the problem is temptations. And then when they fall into their temptations, shaitan comes in and adds a new virus, which is doubt. So when you call them to the deen, they say, I am in doubt, but the real problem wasn't doubt. What was it? The temptations. So in other words, there's a psychological problem and there's an intellectual problem. You could also call it a spiritual problem, a problem of the heart, which is temptation. There's an intellectual problem, a problem of the mind, which is doubt. Most people that give the excuse of the intellectual doubt, actually that's not true. That's a cover, that's a facade. The real problem is their hearts have desires. And they don't want to give up their desires, and to cover that up, they make all kinds of intellectual excuses. And when you get rid of all of them, the truth comes out that it was really their desire. I don't want to change. I don't want to change. This is his, sad state that he doesn't want to come out of. Now, why mention this in the midst of this surah? You see, at the end, Allah says, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, but he mentioned two more things, didn't he? وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah argues, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ. Truth is the removal of what? Doubt. Truth is the weapon against doubt. So what tawasi bil-haq gets rid of one obstacle. And what was the other obstacle? Shahawat, temptations, desires. To fight against those desires, knowing the truth is not enough, what must you have? The strength to not fall into them. The strength to hold back, to control yourself. Where does that come from? وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. You see how beautifully those two obstacles that keep people from iman and a'mal as-salihah, they are mentioned in وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ and وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. This is the comment that I felt was very, very important for us to understand. Now we're going to look at some other commentary. I'm going to go just through my notes so I don't miss anything, inshallah ta'ala. The first comment just about this ayah. You see, in these two ayat, Allah Azza wa Jalla has depicted a very powerful reality. And one element of that is that human beings are so preoccupied with their personal problems. Allah says human beings are in loss, right? But it's, we're thinking about the hellfire and the day of judgment and all of that. But even the way Allah created the human being in this earth, before He has also said, we've already studied, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. We created the human being, no doubt, in toil, in labor. Even the kafir has to work hard. You gotta, work 40 hours, 50 hours to get a paycheck and barely survive, barely make an income. That's their state too. It's not easy for anyone. So even, and there are people in the world who are Muslim or non-Muslim that barely get food to eat, or they see their children starving, and they see all kinds of oppression. So it's not like for the kuffar, all the kuffar, this world is Jannah also. They're also in loss, as even in worldly terms. They suffer a lot of problems. But you know what happens? Human beings, when they completely immerse themselves in their own problems, that's all they think about is themselves, then they fail to see that they are part of a larger picture. And they fail to see that their problems are nothing compared to the problems that are lying ahead. You think this is a problem? There's way bigger lying ahead. So they think they are in loss now, but if you put it in perspective, it's nothing compared to the loss that is coming. This is the first thing that we want to make note of. Then you know what happens when you don't have iman, when you don't have this key that we're going to talk about in the next ayah, your problems get blown out of proportion. You think I've got some really big problems. I get reminded, even human beings are weak. We have these kinds of things. And when I still live in Maryland, our basement, it flooded, right? And I was like, oh my God, the carpet's wet, it's soggy, this, that, the other. Alhamdulillah, we don't have basements in Texas, so it's cool. But so basement, and I called this brother to help out, get rid of the water and stuff. And I'm all stressed out, the kids are upstairs and, electronics and this and that. And the brother comes, and the brother is a good brother, alhamdulillah, he's from, happens to be from Somalia. He's a really good, handyman. And he helps out with the Islamic school in the masjid there. And the brother's helping out. And he says, you look worried, akhi. And I was like, yeah, it's all this problem. He goes, don't worry about water, akhi. You can't fight water. It killed Fir'aun. And we just started talking. And we're talking, and he tells me his life story. Subhanallah, subhanallah. He was 5 years old when his village was attacked by enemy tribes. And he survived on the back of a donkey hiding in hay. And he's traveled as a kid. His parents were executed. He was the only child left in the family. From 5 years old, he's been living on his own, just traveling half of Africa. He went to Ethiopia. He ended up in the Khalij. He started working for a sheikh, learned some little bit of trade, became an engineer. He's got the craziest story. And when you hear his story, you say, man, I got no problems. You get immersed in your problems, and you blow them out of proportion. And this is another loss of the human being. He is at a loss to see that what problems he has are nothing compared to what's out there. He fails to see the gratitude that Allah Azza wa Jal, he owes Allah Azza wa Jal.